Tough times for Canadian teams so far in the playoffs. The defending Cup champs are rolling as the hockey world mourns the loss of a legendary broadcaster. Hey everyone, welcome into Off the Post. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun sports columnist Steve Simmons, Canucks reporter for the Vancouver Sun and the province Patrick Johnston, and Postmedia hockey columnist Bruce Garrioch. Guys, I think the fan bases of most of the Canadian teams felt pretty good going into the playoffs, but as it stands right now, all of them are either tied in their series or trailing. Bruce, when you look at how they have fared so far, which Canadian team are you still the most confident in?
Well, I think it's the Edmonton Oilers because I think they can bounce back from an overtime loss at home. And one of the things we've learned about Stuart Skinner is that he's able to bounce back from losses. I think that the Oilers for a lot of that game last night were in a very good place. I know that the LA Kings are kind of like that they never say die, and I know they've got a lot of players who have been there before, but I just kind of feel like of all the Canadian teams, I feel like the Oilers are probably in the best position to me to get out of that series.
Patrick, how are people feeling in Vancouver?
I think okay. I mean, the fact that obviously the Canucks had so much of the puck was, I think, the positive. But at the end of the day, the struggle to get inside and make something happen, and also obviously falling behind, and obviously the big picture with Thatcher Demko. I think people are they're managing, but they're nervous.
If I'm looking at each of the four teams across Canada, there's a reason in Toronto to be nervous about the Leafs. There's a reason in Vancouver now to be nervous about the Canucks. After allowing as many goals as the Winnipeg Jets did in the two games, there's a reason to be nervous when you have the best goalie in the NHL. I'm with Bruce on this. I think, when you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt first. Again, if they score in overtime last night, it's 2-0 instead of 1-1. So, I like the Oilers to win that series with talent as long as it goes. I'm not nearly as confident in any of the other series, although I think the Canucks should win on their talent alone against the Nashville Predators.
Meanwhile, the Vegas Golden Knights, Patrick, looking like defending Cup champs once again, stealing the first two games on the road in Dallas. Are we sleeping on the Knights yet again as they head into this postseason run?
Well, I mean, it is a bit like what the guys were saying about Edmonton. In the end, the challenge is to score goals, and if you've got an ability to score lots of goals, and you look at that Vegas lineup, that's a strong team from top to bottom. Everybody can score. You look at, obviously, Jack Eichel able to elevate his game in the playoffs like he did last year, like he already has here. Yeah, absolutely. They were a team that no one, I think, out west wanted to play, no matter where they were going to sit coming into the playoffs. And we're seeing why. I am surprised, obviously, that with Dallas having had as strong a season as they did, that they're sitting up 2-0, but I'm also not blown away that it's happened either. The quality is there. The depth is there. I think this series is still going to go to the limit. I think Dallas is going to come back. I mean, 2 1-goal wins. Not exactly saying that Dallas is out of it by any shape, but obviously they have work to do.
Steve, do you feel the same that Dallas still has a shot in this one?
Well, I know someone on this esteemed panel picked a lot of Dallas Stars players in their hockey pool. And he's sitting here with 5 or 6 of them because I didn't know at the time who they were going to be playing in the first round. And I didn't think the bloody Vegas team was going to wind up losing that last game of the season. So it wound up they played Dallas instead of the other way around. And I expected Dallas to be the best team in the West. And they sure haven't looked that way. And if I looked at the roster of Vegas, I would have said, yeah, they're the team to beat. But I didn't think they had it all together. I mean, they're just bringing back Stone and they're just bringing back Hurdle and they're kind of piecing everything together. I didn't think they'd start this fast, this quick. Now, if they get on a roll, watch out for the Golden Knights because that's the best 6-man defense in hockey. It's probably the deepest group of forwards in hockey. Still, sort of 50-50 on their goaltending, but they won a Stanley Cup with 50-50 goaltending. So go figure.
Bruce?
Well, the Dallas Stars, to me, I always wonder about Peter DeBoer when they get in these situations. I have a great amount of respect for Peter DeBoer. I think he's done a good job, but, he had a lot of chances in San Jose, and I think they reached final once. And I just wonder if he's a guy who, I don't know, like, can he take a team to the next level? Can he get them to the promised land? And I look at where the Dallas Stars are right now, and I could sit here and say I'm shocked, but I'm not shocked because the Vegas Golden Knights, we knew they were going to be a tough out. And the one thing I've really noticed is that, I mean, Thomas Hertl, I think, has fit in pretty well there. And if I'm not mistaken, he's playing with Mark Stone. I mean, they have shown some good chemistry.
The one thing I'll note about DeBoer, he's made the playoffs 8 times, and only twice has he not made it to the third round. So Bruce, you're right. I mean, he hasn't gotten to the final hurdle, but this is a coach who's been able to pull stuff out of his teams, and I do think in the end the depth and the way he's been able to coach is an interesting factor in all this. But at the end of the day, they're playing the defending champs, who slow played their season. Obviously, having their guys coming in, it's a heck of a series, and I think it's going to be a fascinating one right to the finish.
I have a bet with a member of the Dallas Stars front office that if they win the Stanley Cup, I get invited to his Stay with the Cup party, and I'm bringing matzo ball soup to drink from the Stanley Cup if they ever win. So we've had this ongoing bet for a number of years now, and they haven't gotten close. And I thought this is the best team that they've had in the time that they've been in Dallas since the '99 Cup team. And so I'm still hoping for a shot at that soup.
I just think they're up against that team that's just, they fight and they claw and they do everything, and they've got all these pieces now, and I think we always knew they were probably in the toughest spot going into the first round, and it certainly has proved that way.
Yeah, it definitely does look like that way, at least through the first 2 games. Finally, sad news from the hockey world. Longtime Hockey Night in Canada play-by-play voice, Bob Cole, passing away at the age of 90. For millions in this country, he was the voice of hockey in Canada for a long, long time. I'm sure we all have our favorite Bob Cole memory or call, but Steve, what can you say about the legacy of one of the iconic broadcasters in the sport's history?
Well, I find myself today, I'm kind of laughing and crying all at the same time, and I keep wanting to do his voice. And so, I'm talking to my friends on the phone going, oh, baby, and doing that kind of thing. And that's the impression that Bob Cole, I think, left on all of us. He could have read the phone book to me, and I would have sat there and listened, because the voice was so spectacular, and the cadence and the small sentences and just the way he called the game. You knew when you heard Bob Cole, the game mattered. And that, to me, is I think he's the greatest play-by-play man in hockey history, and I'm not sure there's a second. And so for that, what a legacy in a country that loves hockey and relishes hockey. He was, for an entire generation, the voice of hockey.
Steve, I'm not quite as old as you, but I mean, I grew up listening to Danny Gallivan and then listening to Bob Cole, and in some ways, Bob Cole, well, in every way, Bob Cole is the soundtrack of Saturday nights, right? And the one thing that Bob Cole had, I remember Eddie Milliken, who was a longtime Hockey Night in Canada producer, did a lot of games in Montreal during the day, and then went on to produce the Columbus Blue Jackets. One of the things he said that Bob Cole's greatest asset, guys, was his ability for anticipation. And when Bob Cole, when Jeff Merrick mentioned this today, when Bob Cole raised his voice, and maybe you were in the kitchen getting a drink or something, you got out there, because Bob Cole had some of the greatest anticipation of big moments you've ever witnessed in your life, Patrick.
I only met him once. He was here in Vancouver for his last game. It was early in the 2018-19 season, and I got a photo of him talking with Sidney Crosby and Scott Oak, and I just thought it was just such a perfect example of the game, the transcendence of his presence. Here's this guy, and here's Sidney Crosby, who's absolutely delighted to see this guy who's been calling games forever, would have been the voice of his youth as well. And just, exactly. You guys nailed it. Like, just you would rush out when something happened because he knew something was going to happen. And then, as I think so many have said, the master of letting the crowd just play the rest of the scene. Just absolutely nailed every call he ever had.
Yeah, very well said, guys. He will be missed. As always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. For Steve Simmons, Patrick Johnston, Bruce Garrioch, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.